Temple Society. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I say all those words about me. So if you thought it was real, you would have given me a louder round of applause. I gave you bhajia, idli, gulgula, still not working. Vanakkam, namaste, namaskaram. Good day to one and all of you. What a glorious day to unveil the bust of Dr. Goonam. What a glorious weather Mother Mariammen has provided for us. We're ever thankful that we could have these types of functions and be blessed with this kind of weather and be blessed with the presence of Dr. Vanita Chetty and her family. The granddaughter of Dr. Goonam is also here. The families are here. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. We also have Judge Tamba Pillai, who is here today, and his wife, Dolly. Thank you very much, sir, for coming over. And our keynote speaker today is Judge Navinidam Pillai. So amongst us, there's an august group of people that we have produced from within the Indian community. And we should be so proud of that. We came here as cane cutters, railway workers, and then we reached to the upper echelons of the judiciary and in politics. So we're also very happy to have amongst us Roy Modley, former MEC Ravi Pillai, former Mayor, Deputy Mayor Logi Naidoo, and a host of others, and my comrades who are going to speak here today. I don't want to introduce you by name, it will be a long list. Your name is already on the program. But we have some dynamic people from within our community. Fellows who can move and shake us by the manner in which they speak and the way they articulate the position in which we must move forward. And I think that is important. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to say much about Dr. Goonam. There's others who are going to say that. I'll be repeating it. But what I do want to say is that she represented the Natal Indian Congress. And the Natal Indian Congress was about bringing change to the people from within the Indian community first, and then interacting with all the other communities that made up our beautiful province of KwaZulu-Natal, and then South Africa. Today, I can tell you, having worked with these people, the job of Dr. Goonam is done through people like Stanley Munsami, through Saroj Govender, through Vasi Govender, through Roy Modley, through Ishwar Ram Lachman. They are the ones that are doing this kind of work. Val Pillai is here, a team. What you don't know is that this is what she espoused. Get into the communities and do the work that is needed to be done. There's also the Phoenix Child Welfare area. They do this kind of work that she espoused every day. So if you want to know about the life of Dr. Goonam, Dr. Phyllis Naidoo, you just have to see it in our neighbors. They are doing that kind of work every other day. Selfishly, selflessly, and without any reward. And so, we have many of those people that are here at the temple, too many to mention. There's many in our community. There are many in Chatsworth, Phoenix, Verulam, Tongaat, you name it, they are there. Without those workers, the Tongaat tornado, the disaster in Tongaat, was a classic example of the work of Dr. Goonam. Of the community coming together, irrespective of language, religion, culture, creed, race, they just simply put their heads together and make things work. The sad part, Ravi Pillai and Logi Naidoo, is that our government did not respond as fast as they should to that disaster. And that is the drama that we have in our country. They should have been the first responders. When I went there that night the tornado took place, I saw ordinary people with chainsaws cutting down trees that were blocking roads to make the roads accessible so that ambulances could get in. But we pay an emergency department in the city and in the province to help us. Why do I pick on the two of you? You're protected in any event. You represent us in that level. You were there. And so when I hear this comment, we are without leadership in the Indian community, it saddens me. So we should take a leaf out of the book of Dr. Goonam. I mean, she lived a full 92 years. Dr. Vanida, your mom lived a full 92 years. And that video is a showcase of a small part of her life. Like Nadine said to you, we had 3 videos, VHS, you know the old cassettes? We could only extract 15 minutes. The others were grainy. The expert is sitting here amongst us, Shri. That's all he could do. And we apologize for the sound quality. That's the best we could get out of that video. And so there's another video that will play much later. But you get a sense, this entire function was about that particular woman leader. So I want to wish all our ladies here today a happy Women's Day. You deserve every minute of this day, 1 day a year. The other 364 days is us. Belongs to us. We are the Lanis. We make no apologies. You wanted 1 day, you got 1 day. We never asked you to accept it. But you did. And so, right, we are the Lanis. So, like I said, the other speakers will come in and do what is necessary. Amongst us, we've had people that traveled far and long to come to this function. I want to welcome Reggie Munsami and his family all the way from Bloemfontein in the Free State. When I sent him the invite, he said, Anna, I'm coming. And he's here. So a warm welcome to you and your family. And there are others who also traveled from Johannesburg to be here with us today. In our midst, ladies and gentlemen, there's Rajan Sugum, the son of the legendary late golfer Papa Sugum. In sporting terms, there is nobody who has reached his level in terms of sports in general, but golf in particular. And so Rajan and the committee that we loosely put together will explain why we think it is important to build a statue or a memorial of the late great Papa Sugum at Devon Country Club, the bastion of white sports at the time. You have all read the story about him receiving the Winners' Trophy in the rain. Now we're going to go tell those winners we are putting a statue there for him. And whether you like it or not, we are going to do it. And when he speaks, then you can clap. I mean, I like it when you clap. I get motivated. Rajan is going to link with people here. We have judges, we have people with doctorates, we have Ravi Pillai, we have Logi, we have other politicians who are going to join us in this venture of ensuring that we get the property at Devon Country Club. Rajan will also tell you the Papa Sugum Club in Reservoir Hills, South State, was taken away. You ask any golfer, Indian, African, colored or white, where are you playing this tournament? They say at Papa's. They don't say Papa's Sugum Country Club or Golf Club. They say we play at Papa's. And that was taken away by the city. Just now, we won't have any more things left that we could call which belongs to our community. And so I want the following community, the civic organizations, Voice of Phoenix, the CPF, the Phoenix Civic Organization, Giving Hope Foundation, and many other organizations to join us in this quest to fight for all that we deserve and we've earned. We just didn't take it, we earned it. And so I have my official spokesperson, Ashwin Desai and Ishwar Ram Lakshman. They are going to lead the charge, Rajan. They'll make sure we get there. And we have a newspaper that's going to back us up as well. She's here, Yogesh Naya. So, having said all of that, I want to move on quickly to 2 other matters that are problematic for me and for us. So the first one is that we have championed since 2010 the monument that must be put at the beachfront, which is near Ushaka Marine World. I sit in that committee, Ishwar Ram Lakshman, and then there was a late Uncle Vic Pillai, 3 of us. representing the Indian community, and they were our counterparts from the Premier's office. It took us 6 years to get a property. We battled 6 long, hard years to get the property at the beach promenade next to Ushaka Marine World. Then the program of putting the monument got delayed by another 2 or 3 years. One was statues must fall, all historical statues must fall. You remember that year? It started with the Rhodes statue. And then there was the anti-Indian sentiment that was concocted by some overzealous fellow who wanted to come to prominence in the form of Pumlani Mfeka, some Goonin JJ organization. That delayed it. So I can count about 9 years that we couldn't really get going with this project. But in 2010, 2011, when we started the process, I've always kept the leadership that I'm responsible to informed of what's going on in that meetings. And we submitted a drawing of a man cane cutter, a woman carrying the cane on her head. And this is the thing about mothers. You are multi-skilled. You can multitask. Whilst carrying the cane on your head, like this picture says, she also carried the child on her hip. There was no creche and granny's house and auntie's house to leave your child in. You had to take your child to work. And so that was going to be the picture. One look at that monument and you know that monument is ours. We came here as slaves, make no mistake about that. You can use a nice English word called indenture. You can use many other terminology. Fact of the matter is we came here as slaves. If you deny that, you are in denial. If you accept that, then you know your history, you know where we are going to. When you listen to the titles these guys have here, that are in your midst, clothing factory workers, shop assistants, unemployed, pensioners, judges, doctors, lawyers, you name them, they are here. That is what we were made of. That's our community. We're in the business sector. So when we say we do all of that, our history is still the same. We came here as slaves. And therefore, there is nothing to be embarrassed about that, because today, children of slaves are called fat cats. We're not fat cats. I'll tell you what we did 160 odd years ago. Those parents of ours who came here as slaves realized 2 things. One, we must master the English language. And that we did. That was the language of the slave master. 2, we must champion education above all else. It's written in our scriptures, Mother, Pira, Guru, Devam. Your mother, your father, your teacher, then God. Those 3 people will realize you've got it. But education is there in our scriptures. And therefore, we've excelled at it. We use that as a mechanism to beat the system. In the process, there were good people amongst us who went on to build universities, schools, primary schools, creches, clinics. We achieved all that. Why am I telling you this story that you already know? So that we pay tribute to them by putting up a monument that is proper and that we can all be proud of. And so I fought. And I found it very difficult to accept, and I still don't accept, that we can put a slave master's bell to remind us of what we've come through. Why are we paying homage to a slave master's bell? So every sugar mill town had a bell. Some of you know it. You've seen it. Some of them still exist. They rang the bell 1 hour before we could start work in the morning, which was at 5 o'clock in the morning, so you could start at 6. But they never rang the bell 1 hour before we could finish work. They rang it exactly at that time or 5 minutes later for you to finish work. We didn't have watches. But the slave master rang the bell. You saw many American movies where those bells are rung. The other reason for the bell is when there's cane fire. I lived in a sugar mill town. I lived here in Mill Barracks. It's still here. Roy got his office there now, except for some changes. The other reason was cane fire. We lived in the middle of all the sugar cane plantation, am I right, Logi? And so when there was cane fire, they rang that bell furiously. so that you must get up and go and put that cane fire out. So those are the two main reasons. There may have been other reasons as well. So it is difficult, Dr. Vanida, to accept, after all the things your mother said, that we must build a slave master's bell and say, this is the history we came from. That's the history we defeated. And so we must engage furiously and get that monument right, notwithstanding the fact that the Premier's office says, this is the monument that is going to be built, and the bell is going to be the most prominent thing there. It can't be. And all of you here shouldn't keep quiet. When you keep quiet, others get the work done, and then it's too late. Make some noise, my brothers and sisters. What kind? They are building a bell that is an insult to you. Am I right, Ishwar? And so, that's the story I want to tell you. The last point is, I am no longer in the African National Congress after having been there for all my life. Simply because we got pushed aside. MEC at the time, Ravi Pillai will attest, I said it in 2021. In the near future, there won't be any Indians left in the branches of the ANC. We are being pushed quietly. And so when you push us out of your home, our home, which is the African National Congress, and we are told you are no longer required there, there's no point in continuing to stay there. We use that vehicle to try and unite our community and improve the lives of our community. It didn't happen, and so we left. And we joined other political forums and formations so that we may try and unite our community and improve their lives. Every single one of you at the dinner table says, we are being marginalized and we are being pushed out. There's nothing coming our way. Our children can't get placed in university because we are charos. Plain and simple. I argued for many years that I'm an African, the ID says so, I am black because the Constitution says so, therefore I'm a black African. Only for my African brothers, Mamlenda, to say, you're not. There's 4 columns on an application form. And that's when I said this many years ago. Race, I must select the Indian, and it says I can't get a place. I understand the dynamics of the population. It's there, but it doesn't say I mustn't fight for our space. And we are, and we get called charos, fat cats. So I want to leave you with that, because I'll stay here the whole day and try to justify what I'm saying, and you'll agree. And after you go home, you'll forget about what I said. It has happened many times. And so let me leave it there. I've spoken first today and not last, because I wanted to give others who think it is valid to speak about what I said a chance or a right of reply. If you don't want to, it's fine. But to conscientize our community all of the time. And so today, I want you to know that you are here to celebrate the life of an icon in our struggle. You don't get them better than Dr. Goonam. And for good measure, I have friends here and I have a family here. And we are very happy to have you here. We are blessed to have you here. But if you turn around and look behind you, Dr. Vanida, you will see how many people are interested in their life story. I can assure you it's not the mutton biryani, chicken biryani, and veg biryani that we are going to serve a little later. That is just a little bit of the nice thing that's going to happen. But by and large, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy to have you here. Enjoy the rest of the program. Today is a day about speakers coming forward and telling you about their life and their interactions with them. Many things you know about it, you'll see it on social media, on YouTube. But people have had individual interactions with them. And we want you to enjoy, appreciate and enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Mr. Seelan Archery. So we now move on to the core of our program. And the first speaker comes from this organization, the NIC, formerly known as the Natal Indian Congress. And it was a political organization established in 1894 to fight discrimination against Indians in the Natal colony and later the Natal province. Help me in welcoming a very close friend to Dr. Goonam, and that is none other than Judge Damba Pillai.
Ladies and gentlemen, a happy Women's Day to all present, and I wish to express that I'm very grateful and honored to be invited not only as a guest on this momentous occasion of an unveiling, but more so for the invitation to briefly outline my interaction with this very famous lady who remains largely forgotten as one of the heroes of the struggle against apartheid. There are just a few who would remember Dr. Goonam at a personal level, and I happen to be one of the few still alive. Fortunate to have interacted with her at a personal level, and that too somewhat briefly during the early 1960s in my days as an executive member of the Natal Indian Congress under the leadership of Dr. Monty Naidoo. Apart from my interaction with her at a political level, there was a personal relationship which goes back to my parents, and I recall with great sadness the passing on of my mother on the 21st of May 1961, when Dr. Goonam took it upon herself to convey the sad news from St. Aidan's Hospital, where mother happened to be hospitalized at the time of her death. And I was at that time hiding from the security police who were looking out for activists to detain. Everybody knew Dr. Goonam as somewhat of a trailblazer, not only in the world of politics encompassing the fight against apartheid, but a champion of women's rights, which raised eyebrows at the time. She was outspoken, brave in the sense that she identified apartheid by being one of those Natal Indian Congress passive resistance who braved arrest and crossed the border at False Cross into Transvaal, and being jailed for what was then a transgression for people of Indian origin. She had somewhat of a soft spot for me as a young activist during her lifetime. Firstly, through my being in the executive of the Natal Indian Congress under the chairmanship of Dr. Monty Naidoo, and my activism against apartheid education, and of course the tricameral parliament. Dr. Goonam distinguished herself as being among the first doctors of Indian origin, having qualified in Edinburgh together with Doctors Monty Naidoo and Yusuf Dadoo, and it must come as no surprise that she was politically conscientized in that same image. I had never seen her other than in a sari and the traditional red botu on her forehead, but nearly always with a cigarette attached to a long cigarette holder. And that raised eyebrows among a conservative community, but rightly overlooked and accepted for her sterling work on the anti-apartheid front. She traveled widely, practiced in some foreign lands, and elicit support for the struggle against apartheid. She is known to have practiced in England, India, Australia, and Zimbabwe as best as I remember. The unveiling of her statue in her memory is a fitting tribute to a lady who remains largely unknown, and the organizers of this function need to be congratulated for the unveiling of this bust in her memory. She remains a heroine of the struggle, and much that we enjoy as citizens on the basis as do all South Africans is in part to the Dr. Goonams of this world. Long may her memory live in the history of South Africa. I also wish to remember on this day the other largely unsung women heroes of the struggles, mostly forgotten. And I think it is time that we did something to restore their memory in the lives of the current day South Africans. I speak of the likes of Phumani Mudli, Rajas Pillay, Fatima Sidat, Radhi and Ansuya Singh, Victoria Mkenge, Nina Hashim, Tim Naidoo, and a host of others, too many to mention. I remember Phumani Mudli in particular, who lived in Clarewood. She had one lung. At a very early age, she contracted TB. And I defended that group of people for about 20, which included Billy Nair, Kernick and Slovo, and all of them who were the first group who went to Robben Island. And Phumani Mudli, with her one lung, visited each and every one of them at every opportunity she got. She was an amazing young activist. And so was the like of Rajas Pillay, who I met in exile, Fatima Sidat, Radhi and Ansuya Singh, Victoria Mkenge, who I worked with when she was murdered during the 1980 UDF trial. Nina Hashim, the wife of Kader Hashim too, Tim Naidoo, the sister of MD Naidoo, all women leaders, and a lot more that don't come too readily to mind, who should not be forgotten on this particular day. For that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for inviting me to speak to you, and I made it short because I know that there is a long program ahead. Thank you very much indeed for the honor.
Thank you for that, Judge Tamba Pillay. We move on to our next speaker now, and this gentleman here is a strong community activist residing just outside of Phoenix and outspoken in terms of community rights and working towards a better future for all of us. Help me in welcoming Mr. Azad Sidat.
Greetings to all, especially the organizers of the Shri Mariammen temple. One of the things I have fond memories of this temple is because I've been attending the functions here for the past 47 years, since we moved into Phoenix in 1977. Every year that Easter weekend when we had the functions here, we were always here. We used to walk in our thousands, man. You know, I still remember those good old days. You know, when this temple was the uniting factor for the entire Indian community. So on behalf of the South African Communist Party, I want to wish all the women present here and those who are not present a happy Women's Day. So early on, Comrade Cyril made some comments about the African National Congress and things like that. But I'm a member of the South African Communist Party, and Dr. Goonam, by the way, was also an advocate for communism and socialism. She belonged to the left wing of the Natal Indian Congress. Now, Comrade Seelan, just for your information, Comrade Dr. Goonam, she saw herself not as an Indian, she saw herself as a fellow African. One of the things that hurt her the most was the caste system within the Indian community. She even changed her surname. That is the kind of woman she was. She was a dynamic woman who saw beyond what we are looking at. So, Dr. Goonam, from my childhood experience, I know she was a very beautiful woman. Wherever she came, her presence was felt. And I was 13 years old when my father passed away. And together with herself, Fatima Mir and Winnie Mandela, when they attended my father's funeral, Dr. Goonam broke rank I think, she blessed my father. I think my father is the only Muslim woman in the entire world, Muslim man in the entire world. While he was lying, while his deceased body was there, people paying tribute to him, Dr. Goonam went down and kissed him on his forehead. That caused a huge controversy in the family, Where you get a non-haram touching a deceased body, even the wife can't touch the body, and here comes a woman that just comes and kisses him on the forehead. So this was Dr. Goonam. She was not a person who followed tradition. She had her own thing going. So comrades, we are gathered here today to remember Dr. Goonam, who was a champion and tireless freedom fighter. Through her work, Dr. Goonam exposed the true contradictions of capitalist society, where profits are prioritized over people's lives. She stood in solidarity with the marginalized and fought the system of oppression that seek to divide us today. Dr. Goonam's commitment to equality, justice, and human rights is a beacon of hope in a world ravaged by exploitation and inequality. Her legacy reminds us that a better world is possible, a world where the means of production are owned and controlled by the people, not profiteers. Let us continue Dr. Goonam's fight for a world where healthcare is a right. And today we know that the African National Congress has implemented the NHI, the National Health Insurance. This is what Dr. Goonam fought for, that health becomes a right, not a privilege, and those of us who go to Stanga or the private hospital, no, those days are over, thanks to Dr. Goonam and her efforts in the struggle. She also fought so that we have free education, and that education should be accessible to all, and that the wealth of society be shared equitably amongst all of us. Long live the spirit of Dr. Goonam. Long live the struggle for socialism and communism. Watita Bafasi, Watita Boboto. Amanda.
Thank you for those uplifting words, Mr. Sida. And I think, we live in a country of South Africa where a woman like me of 2024 ignites that flame in me because of my forefathers. And we had women soldiers like Dr. Goonam and like our next speaker, who is from the ANC Veterans League, and helped me in welcoming this powerhouse woman, a woman soldier herself, warrior queen, Ms. Linda Zama.
Hello everybody, namaste, sanibona. This is a privilege. It is also an honor. I do hope that I will not overreach my minutes. The temptation when the African National Congress name is mentioned, as it was previously mentioned, it's to defend. I'm not going to defend that, and there's a reason for that. Dr. Nelson Mandela, Mama Winnie, Phyllis Naidoo, as well as Dr. Goonam, somehow they trusted me. I don't know why. I'm the only person who was invited by Dr. Madiba when he became president. Just a child. He confided in me about inclusivity because he was thinking of sending Dr. Busak abroad as an ambassador. He specifically said, and I'm glad I'm mentioning this to you, he didn't want the ANC to be perceived as a Xhosa organization. Dr. Madiba was inclusive, whether as a public person, an icon actually, or in his private life. He consulted me about that. What is also interesting is that in 2005, Mama Adelaide Tambo consulted me in private again about her discomfort when things were beginning not to go the way she had dreamt about. And I was honest. Then this great lady, the great lady, she lived at 45th Cutting in Sherwood. She invited me for dinner herself, and she was persistent. It was a Saturday, and then she said to me there would be part one of the dinner. We will be talking about her book, the memoirs, her experiences, and then she said, I will have cooked for you. You must come. I still remember when she phoned, it was midday, Saturday. She wanted to make sure I was coming. And then I giggled. I said, I honor appointments. I will be there. And I was there. As we were chatting, there were three of us. It was Dr. Goonam, her little dog, and myself. She would talk to me about her experiences, her dreams, her concerns, and then the little dog would come, and then obviously she would forget about me and talk to the dog. At dinner table, the dog would be there, so there were three of us, and I love that, by the way. As usual, in her colorful outfits, red lipstick, beautifully coiffed, she spoke to me, she confided in me. So, I'm one of those people, and I'm unapologetic, simply because I can never change the three colors that I carry. I'll tell you why I will never be apologetic. I cannot leave the ANC, and there's a reason for that. Because I can never leave being myself. I can never leave challenging people that, my goodness, tribalism is something that I don't understand. I can never leave the fact that I am one of those people who will look around and say, where are others? Because inclusivity is just me. So I can't leave myself. It was a privilege for me to be recruited to do underground work by the late Oliver Tambo. I don't know why they trusted me. Last year in June, it was 2023, I had the rare privilege again of being asked to have a one-to-one private meeting with the late Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who was pouring his heart out. I don't know why he also confided in me. So, I am honored to stand here and unapologetically say, here is a woman who lived her life, and she lived her life beyond what we are going to be doing today. Her life lives in us, in some of us who even experienced her. But for those who didn't experience her, we are saying, when you see us, you see Dr. Goonam. Because there are some of us who, even when they are fast asleep, we know what we stand for. Something inclusive, something big, something universal, something lasting, and something beautiful and colorful, as she was. She was not apologetic. She was not a respecter of anything. So before I shut up, I'm glad Ravi is here. Most of you don't know Ravi. Ravi is one of the most beautiful souls I have ever encountered. He is my confidant. Ravi knows how I feel about Dr. Goonam, the honor, the respect I have for her. It is a privilege that there is also Judge Thamba Pillay here, my professional leader, my comrade. And we do have many others. In conclusion, 2 weeks ago I was playing golf at Windsor. And what I saw there concerned me. For the first time I played golf, and then I saw, a golf course, the ambience is supposed to be lush and green, and some people had been burning trees there, and I remarked, I have a big mouth. And the bunkers didn't have sand. I was concerned. I said, who is managing this course? And then I was told that, well, in addition to that, the person who is managing that course is also managing Papua. And then I said, oh my goodness, we are in trouble. And then I sent a message on Monday complaining about bunkers at Windsor, bunkers that didn't have sand. So, it's not just the Indian community that is concerned about certain things. The lenders of this world are also concerned. All I'm saying, this is an open invitation, and I'm sure Dr. Goonam, that is her spirit, talks to me. Let us be inclusive so that there is no perception that this is an Indian thing. You are South Africans. That you came as slaves doesn't matter. What matters is that you are South Africans. Others can say something, whether it's in Vegas or in Janges, etc. The bottom line is that you are South Africans, and we are proud of this connection. What we are going to be witnessing here needs to go beyond just the physical, the spiritual. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that inspirational words, Ms. Linda Zama. And I think it's for a woman like her that I can be a woman like me and stand up on the stage and address all of y'all. So thank you so much for that warrior queen spirit. We now move on to our next speaker, and a man that needs no introduction, as Ms. Linda said, Mr. Ravi Pillay.
Thank you very much, our lovely program directors, young women who are the example that we want to see of young people and young women in particular taking the lead. Let me recognize Dr. Vanita Chetty and the entire family who's here. You represent the icon that we are honoring today. Of course, the esteemed group of leaders is going to speak to you, and I'm not going to strict time limits apply, although there's a right of reply. I don't know how that's going to affect the minutes allocated, but the esteemed judges and Ashwin, I don't see where Ashwin Desai, who is right there as well. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, it is an honor to be here today to share this very important Women's Day, and of course for a very, very special occasion of the unveiling of Dr. Goonam's bust. Let me start with good wishes and congratulations on behalf of the African National Congress to the leadership of the Shri Mariammen Temple, which Seelan, I've been here many years now, and it's 120. 120? 134. 134 years of its existence. So this temple is steeped in history of our community. A temple that has stood the test of time and will surely outlive all of us. It is a special responsibility for those under whose care it is today to truly care for it, protect it, weather all the storms that may batter it, and pass it on to the next generation, having made it even better in the best traditions of stalwarts such as Dr. Goonam. Of course, she made a mark, and many of the speakers are going to outline the line and detail of that phenomenal history. But her effort was to make our society better, and so much so that we today very rightly honor her legacy in this wonderful way. So congratulations again to Selvin Naika, Seelan Archery, and the leadership of the Shri Mariammen Temple. Now, as I said, our esteemed lineup of speakers are going to unpack her legendary life, and many will do so with personal experiences, as Linda has just explained. But for me, as a small boy in the small town of Port Shepstone, I remember my grandmother, who brought me up, speaking about her. And she spoke in Tamil about her. And she spoke about the fact that Dr. Goonam spoke in Tamil to her community. And they spoke with a sense of awe and a sense of excitement that such a woman as Dr. Goonam could be holding such a powerful leadership position. The same grandmother, no doubt inspired by people like Dr. Goonam, made sure that I went to Tamil school after normal school, made sure that I had to learn the songs of the Devaram and the Arutpa, and take part in the Eistedt fairs that were run at that particular time. The point is that Dr. Goonam was one with the people as she engaged in the vernacular. But as you have heard, she was ahead of her time in so many ways, in her social life, in her profession, and in her political life. And of course, she was the vice president of the NIC, the Natal Indian Congress, and activist leader of the ANC. No doubt, we would have today felt her biting and lashing tongue, lashing us for our serious failures and instances of outright betrayal. And she would be demanding of us to think, and think hard, about what it is that must be done to confront the challenges that we face today. So it is appropriate that we honor Dr. Goonam in this 130th year of the anniversary of the Natal Indian Congress. NIC was formed even before the ANC. And it made a seminal contribution, which all of us must remember, and young people in particular, and I will end up with a note with young people later. The contribution of the Natal Indian Congress to the history of our country. The Satyagraha campaign, which produced a hero such as Valiamma, whose bust stands behind me. The passive resistance campaign. The Doctors Pact, Dr. Dadu, Dr. Uma, and Dr. Monty Naika. The Defiance campaign. She went to jail 17 times. People went to jail for the passive resistance campaign. People went to jail for the Defiance campaign, the anti-apartheid campaign, the mass struggles, the underground, the armed struggle. The NIC made that contribution. Made the contribution to Cordesa in producing the constitution that governs us today, and that is what we should be defending today. A constitution rooted in the Freedom Charter. And of course, building the democratic state with all its fault lines, that democratic state was built with the contribution of activists from the Natal Indian Congress. Many leaders like Dr. Goonam have left indelible footprints. There are those who seek to erase that or airbrush it from history. From India, there are those who don't want to acknowledge that. We must resist that. We must confront them. But the majority simply do not know. We must educate them. There are many young people. I spoke to a secretary of a very senior leader to secure an appointment. And the secretary said, it's about a program around the NIC. Do you know what the NIC is? No. And I spoke to a young African activist, not activist, sorry, ordinary African young person. Do you know? And he asked the question, who's Chris Hani? That's the serious problem we have about the understanding of our young generation, and we need to make an effort to change that. That is why events such as this are so important, and I hope it gets the media coverage that it should. I don't want to go into detail and abuse this platform. It is about Dr. Goonam today. But the fact that we are able to speak frankly, be critical, be angry, and know that we will be able to sleep tonight and not be arrested is a function of this vibrant democracy that we have. It is also a function of our own maturity, that we are able to express our views and differ and even be angry with each other but still remain comrades. And I'm able to be here and share this platform for Seelan despite his criticism. And that's something we must never lose. But with just a 30-second rebuttal, which will leave it to another platform, there's always another side to the story. And there was a public process which involved public advertisements, which involved very senior team of community leaders applying their minds to make a recommendation to the provincial government as to what this monument should be. And it was just a concept. The actual artist who's doing it, I understand, is a world-renowned artist who will do the construction and the actual creation of it. But the fact that we might have a disagreement about the concept and the detail of the artistic expression is not something that should divide us. And the culture in which we were brought up should enable us to sit and debate. And the democratic society we have allows platforms to address and deal with issues. Because it doesn't have to be the end of the world. Let me say to young people that all young people must know about this coolie doctor. We must make it our duty, who lived and led in a time when the rallying call of the oppressor, the National Party was campaigning to take power at the time, and their rallying call was die kaffer in sy plek and die coolie uit die land. That is how raw, how brutal, how crude they were. And the fact that Dr. Goonam would go to jail 17 occasions will tell you how repressive they were. Let me repeat that so it can sink in as to how brutal it was. Die kaffer in sy plek en die coolie uit die land. But yet our duty, if all the leaders, from Mahatma Gandhi to Monty Naike to George Superstar to Billy Nair to even Praveen Gordon have upheld one very important principle that is critical today as well, and that is ethical leadership. So when we debate, we must debate honestly. We may have a view, but we don't justify that view with falsehoods or twist it. The debate must be informed by facts. So that ethical leadership is important. Of course, unity, democracy, and she's trying to, the defense I have is that Seelan said right of reply, but I'm not going to abuse it. So that those values are critical. So when we do things, we have to be mindful as to whether we taint the image and integrity of the community in the way we do things. So young people, never give up. There are new conditions today. You need new methods, but rise and fulfill your generational mission. My last words, it's the same thing, repeated in a different way. It was said by a great leader. Every generation must either fulfill or betray its mission. Must fulfill or betray its mission. And I want to challenge our young people to fulfill the mission of their generation. Thank you for listening.
As the 10th disciple of the Srimati of Kumari Shiksha Singh and KSDI, it gives me the great privilege to now introduce one of our students, Kumari Subhadra Singh, the 93rd disciple of the Srimati Shiksha Singh and KSDI, and the 113th disciple, apologies, of KSDI, who will now do a Kathak performance.
Thank you for that, the Kumari Shiksha Dance Academy. We now move on to a monumentum launch, and this one is from the Papua Sugum Memorial Committee, and I'd like to call upon on stage Mr. Charles Naidoo, Mr. Rajan Sugum, and Mr. Don Gavada.
Hi, good morning, namaste, vanakkam to all. Happy Women's Day to our beautiful ladies and beautiful souls. And this morning, it's a pleasure to stand in front of a crowd to talk about our great leader, the late Papua Sugum. You know, growing up in the struggle, we had heroes. We had great people that fought for the struggle. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there were so many icons. And we only wish we can honor, just like Dr. Goonam, with such monumental memories. But unfortunately, there's one great sports person, a golfer, who has achieved the highest in this country and recognized worldwide as one of the greatest golfers, the left-arm group that he initiated in professionalism. And this, with the management of the Shri Mariammen Temple Committee, we want to initiate a monument where we, as the people of sporting world, want to recognize this icon. We just started initiating this committee. We want to call more people into this committee, make this a reality, and we're going to pursue this, and we want to build this at the Durban Country Club. I want to now introduce you to the son of late Mr. Papua Sugum, Rajan Sugum, to say a few words. Thank you.
I offer my humblest pronouns at the feet of my late mother, Mrs. Sumintra Sugum, and all past and present women on this Women's Day. The program director, esteemed guests, I would at the outset like to place on record my appreciation to the Shri Mariammen Temple and its executive for their kind consideration in extending this invitation to the Papua Sugum family. Whilst we remember and admire the challenges and struggles by the late Dr. Goonam, I also found a parallel in the struggles and challenges that my late dad, Papua Sugum, faced as a golfer of color in the late 1950s and 1960s. As a caddy born in 1928 into an impoverished family with no education, Papa became a beacon of hope and paved the way to highlight the plight of all sportsmen. Papa's record as a playing professional was one of a victor and victim. In 1959, he won the Dutch Open on debut and will go on to win it a total of 3 times in a period of 6 years. It was only in 1963 that the South African PGA allowed him to play in South Africa. Prior to that, he had to get permission from the British PGA to play a host of tournaments in Europe. And in that same year, in 1963, he was allowed to play at the Durban Country Club. He was given the minimal opportunities to practice, and this was to ensure that he didn't perform well. At the tournament, the special branch were on his tail. His change room was a makeshift tent outside, and he had to have his sandwich in his car. Be it as it may, he went on to win the Natal Open on debut. His victory was overshadowed by the dismal treatment given to people of color by receiving his winner's trophy and check in the pouring rain at Durban Country Club. The turning point in his short-lived golfing career came to a halt when he won the Natal Open for the second time in 1965 at the very same venue. This time it was slightly different. Gary Player had already won all his majors around the world, and he came second to my dad at that Natal Open. The apartheid regime could not handle the embarrassment and pressure in allowing Papua to continue playing in open tournaments. As a victor in winning 3 Dutch Open titles, 2 Natal Open titles, runner-up in the SA, and 12 non-white SA Opens, and a host of many other tournaments, Papua became a victim of the apartheid system, and he was banned from playing in any tournaments in 1966. A ban that ended his traveling rights and participation in tournaments literally crippled him. A career cut short, but a remarkable one, making his mark as one of the greatest non-white golfers that ever lived. And it is my fervent hope and prayer that I can use this as a platform to indulge you to construct a statue at the Durban Country Club as a symbol of his greatness and struggle as one of South Africa's greatest sportsmen. There is no bitterness in where we've come from. If we've lived in the right place and in the right time, then we won't be here talking about him. In closing, I echo the words of Maya Angelou, and I quote, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Thank you and God bless.
So I get to come back a second time because I want to do this deliberately. So to the family, I know this is a side item, but we want to capitalize on the fact that we have this august audience here. So how many of you in this audience here play golf? Or golfers? I know I'm thoroughly handicapped, so I got a problem. But what we'd want to do is extend an invitation to all of you to please join in this committee. Find a space in there. Let us raise enough money to put this monument together. And also, if there's any monies left over, and there should be, we'll be able to create a golf academy that can teach disadvantaged children to play the game of golf in the name of Papa Sugum. So, we're counting on people like the civic organizations that exist in Phoenix, Ravi Pillai, Logi, Mam Linda, and the like, to join forces with us, with these young men. I mean, his father won the title in 1963. That's about 25 years ago. I was born in 1963. He was born in 1963. We are 25 years old today. So, my only task now is to offer you this opportunity to join together and put this monument together as a community, but in your words, Ma, as South Africans, and get the name of Papa Sugum back into that country club at Reservoir Hills. Thank you very much.
Dr. Goonam was born in February 1906 and died in 1998. She studied in England and then transferred to Edinburgh to study medical science. In 1936, she arrived in Durban as the first Indian woman doctor, if not in South Africa. In 1959, she had to deal with apartheid and racism as it was at its peak. She was also known as our warrior in a sari. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Yana Pillai, a family friend who arranged the funeral for Dr. Goonam. Mr. Yana Pillai. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we couldn't hold the aeroplane back in time for him, so he was unable to be here. But I would like to hand you over to Devasli, who will introduce to you Mr. Ashwin Desai.
Mr. Ashwin Desai is another gentleman that needs no introduction, but he is an author, sociologist, and community activist, so let him tell you what he's all about.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I must say that when it comes to August, I just think about my mother so much. And not only because it's Women's Month, but her birthday was on August 16th. But he always booked himself off as feeling unwell. And he was going for some medicine. My mother called me the devil child. And I would always say, Ma, but I'm your son. And she would say, you're not my son, you're your father's son. When Seelan spoke about the bell, I felt so guilty. Because if anything my mother desired was for me to be head prefect at high school. And that day, Mr. Vasa, our principal, came to the school assembly. Head prefect, I didn't get in. Deputy head prefect, didn't get in. Prefect, nothing. The final position was bellboy. And that's what I was given. And finally, even there, I was fired. Because there was a teacher, Mr. Sujat, and he was a brilliant mathematics teacher. But I didn't understand algebra from geometry. And one day, when it was 20 minutes into the lecture, I rang the bell. And so our mothers have such an incredible influence on us. Our mothers broke barriers. Our mothers gave us a spine. Our mothers loved us without a sense of a backward glance. I remember we lived in a flat in Halpin Avenue in Reservoir Hills, and there were the Patha twins there, and they were fighting with me, and they got the better of me. And then I went to the shop, I bought 2 Chappies bubble gums, and I put it in both their hair. And the mother came screaming to my mother and said, your son, that devil child, he put bubble gum in my children's hair, I had to shave it off. And my mother, without a hint of irony, said, my son, he'd only put bubble gum in their hair if they did something to him. She didn't deny I put bubble gum in their hair, but she thought she could justify their act. But schooling was important to her. She only went as far as standard 3, but she wanted me to collect as many degrees as possible. She sat there early in the morning at 3 o'clock and made me repeat essay after essay. I had an uncle who was an Afrikaans teacher, and he would write out the obstels and I would learn them by heart. And so we remember those people, because Seelan is right. There were 3 things that animated people. Spirituality, and that's why this temple was built in 1862. Before even people thought of building in a boat for themselves, they built a place of worship. That's the first S. The second S they thought about was schooling. And Dr. Goonam is an example of that. If it wasn't for a breakthrough moment when Agent General Srinivas Sastry built the first high school, although it was only for boys. Until then, 80% of Indian school-going children in 1926 never got to high school. And if you look at Dr. Goonam's incredible biography, you will see how a family were prepared to sacrifice so that she could finish high school. They even got private tuition for her with Pauline Morel. And that's how she got to Edinburgh. And that's how you see that iconic photograph of her with that beautiful sari on a bicycle, next to a bicycle in Edinburgh. The third part was security. Why security? Because the idea that we were aliens and that everybody must be repatriated was the official government policy, whether it was through segregation or through apartheid. And people fought to become South Africans. And so there are those three S's, not the Datsun triple S's that Indians loved. And these were the spines of our community. And so when you think about these stories, the kind of work we are doing, the kind of research that we get into, our lives are trespassed with this. Just like my grandfather was a principal of Mount Edgecombe, my father's first job as a teacher was at Munsami School in 1961 in Inanda. Do you know the history of that school? Do you know who built that school? It was by the Pangan family who arrived in 1907. And Pangan worked at the Kronberg wattle plantation. In 1938, he led a strike. He was banished to Hilton. Spent a year and a half there, came back to the wattle plantation and built a mud house that they moved to. And then in the 1930s, earlier he had a son in 1916, he named the school after his son, Munsami School, an indentured laborer arriving as a slave, built a school, and those people went on to Stang and elsewhere to get higher education. We do research not for it to be dead and inert, for it to inspire us. And that is why we are here. That is why we are not perfect human beings. That is why some of us, like even Dr. Goonam, will write in a biography, I failed, but I tried again. I can tell you when my mother died, she kept every report of mine. Every report. And I went in Standard 3 to Stella Hill Primary School, and under conduct it said, needs special attention. My father went to school. He made the rules. He listened to the rules. He brought home Mr. Botha, the Afrikaans inspector for Diwali, so he should get promoted. My mother taught me how to break the rules, how to challenge people, how to not live under things that are just simply inherited without questioning. Our traditions and our culture are alive and they run through our bodies. My father always wanted me to go to Varanasi, but I didn't want to go to India. I wanted to go to New York and London. But last year I went to Varanasi. I tell you, for those of you who went, it will change your lives. I always feel guilty when I go to holy places like when I came here, because I'm a man filled with sin. I'm a man who's always on the edge of being the devil or the saint. And then I realized who was the founder of Varanasi? Shiva himself, the ultimate outsider. A man who got so angry with a Brahmin, he cut his head off. And so I'm glad I went there. And this year, my mother always told me, Ashwin, take me to Valangani Church in Pondicherry where I came from. And I thought, how can there be a church in Pondicherry? My mother is smoking dacha again. She's delusional. She told me stories about Valangani Church. And Valangani Church does exist. I saw it on the internet. It's one of the most beautiful places. And this year I will go to the Valangani Church and continue and make that circle of life. So I came here to pay homage to Dr. Goonam. I came here to pay homage to all our mothers who in many ways were Dr. Goonams. And I came to pay homage to this temple and what they have done to recognize this great woman. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ashwin Desai. I'm just going to read a short message of support while our other item gets set up. So this one is coming in from Dr. Raj Govender, the CEO of the Tamil Business Warriors and Southside FM Radio, and social cohesion advocate in the government of South Africa. So he goes on to say, on the occasion of the unveiling of the bust of the legendary political activist, the late Dr. Kaiseveloo Goonrathnam, an unwavering support. Dr. Goonam was a beacon of courage and determination, dedicating much of her life to the struggle for freedom for all people in South Africa. Her immense contributions, though sometimes overshadowed, were pivotal in the fight against oppression and injustice. It is both fitting and praiseworthy that the Shri Mariammen temple is honoring Dr. Goonam today by consecrating a bust in her honor. This act of recognition serves not only as a contribute to her remarked legacy, but also as a powerful symbol and a constant reminder to all who visit the temple of the significant role she played in the shaping of our nation's history. As we celebrate this monumentous occasion, it is also imperative to acknowledge the need for our education system to evolve. The history syllabus in schools must be updated to include the stories of such great heroes, ensuring the future generations understand and appreciate this individual. The unveiling is not just a tribute to call to action for all of us, but to continue her legacy and unwavering commitment to our social justice. I now hand you over to the Shri Sidambaram Nadaraja Alyam Koya. If you would please look to your left.